The world is an extraordinarily unjust place. It has been for a very long time. There has been no golden age in the world. The political, economic, and social order internationally and domestically is awful in almost every country. What I can do professionally is to stress out the structures which are overarching, which underpin exploitation, underprivileged conditions in every country. Structures of global economic dominance, structures of racism, structures of casteism, structures of community hatreds, all of them. I cannot outline all of them. But let me tell you that basically, some of the driving forces behind these are the driving forces of capitalism. Capitalism is a system of competition, unlimited competition. Capitalism is a system which has pitted state against state for acquisition of resources. States protecting the properties of their citizens or their clients, not always their citizens either. States have competed with arms, with diplomacy, with misinformation, with disinformation. One of the ways in which particularly in this modern phase, capitalism has worked is by denying information, by making decisions non-transparent, by creating organizations which take decisions behind closed doors. And these have been, I won't go into the history of all this. The history lies with what Rousseau rightly said in his discourse on inequality. The history lies with the beginning of what he called civil society, when some person fenced an area of land and called it its own. History lies of inequality begins with that. I'll talk about only the latest phase of the growth of inequality in the world. That inequality has increased to historic proportions. And all these can be laid down to competition, increase of economic power in a few hands, and use of that power to grab more resources. And one can look at sector after sector to show how this has been done. If you want justice, you see, you cannot have proper reconciliation without justice. You cannot simply paper over mass murders. You cannot paper over denial of essential facilities to people. Today, in India, in my own country, food prices have risen to unimaginable heights. I do not know how ordinary people are surviving. And yet that country is capable of producing all the food that we need for proper nutrition of the people. At least 47% of the children are undernourished already. With the rise in food prices, the degree of malnourishment will rise also, probably to 60%, 70%. And that country is projected by the economists as one of the poster countries in the world, because we have billionaires there. We have billionaires who can compete with billionaires in other countries. We are very happy to have billionaires. When we have, in the very backyard of Mumbai, which is the financial capital of India, in the very backyard of that, we have every week several farmers committing suicide because they cannot pay their debts. Is that the kind of world in which we can have reconciliation without giving justice to the surviving farmers? Is that the kind of world where we can live, where even now murders are being carried out in the names of states. It is not only individual terrorists who are murdering people. And there is, you can see, if you track the record, that you take some of the simple figures. If you look at any ILO employment report, the highest rates of unemployment, measured unemployment, not underemployment and so on, are almost always to be found in the region of West Asia and North Africa. In 2003, I think 40% of the young people were unemployed. What do you think these people will do? Where will they find their life? And if you are going to fight terrorism, don't you have to fight a situation where creates unemployment for all these young people? And how are you going to do that without fighting the global institutions and the global powers, the United States being in their leadership? And you think that you can conduct war in order to bring out peace in this situation? So it is the whole thing is interconnected. You cannot try to cure the basic structures of oppression in the world without treating the basic mega institution called private property. That is what you can accumulate to an unlimited extent. You cannot have that and welfare for the people. You cannot save the world from the climate change. The energy industry, I'll end with that. The energy industry has spent millions of dollars to, again, for disinformation. Alliance of coal companies in Britain, alliance of coal companies in United States, something that was financed by Exxon, when they found that the findings that, clearly that they are all responsible for carbon emissions and they're going to go into global warming, these alliances tried to stop the scientists from publishing these results. So one of the things that this kind of summit can also do is to try and diffuse the awareness of the disinformation that is being fed through the global media all the time, and bring into the picture real transparency about people's living conditions, their cultures, their community links, their communities. As I entirely agree with Susan, that communities are also imagined communities. We are a community here. We are a community because we share certain values. The communities are there on the ground. Some of the most distressed communities are there on the ground. They're trying to survive while keeping some of their values intact. But we can also create our own communities, global communities, through conferences like this. And for that, again, may I thank you for inviting me and just giving me the chance to talk about some of the things that still concern me. I have not been a policy maker at any great level. I have only advised sometimes trade unions, sometimes women's self-help groups, sometimes, feminist groups fighting for gender equity. But beyond that, I feel helpless. It is only people all around the world, again, echoing my previous speaker, who can make a difference to what we are doing. But we cannot get there without actually, hitting the basic structures which underpin the injustice that still pervades in this world. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.